Homeless boy saved the biker's wife from an armed robber. What the Hells Angels did next. Marcus hadn't felt warm in 3 weeks. The November cold bit through his threadbare jacket as he huddled behind the gas station on 4th Street, trying to make himself small against the wind. 16 years old, no family, no home, just another invisible kid the city had forgotten. His stomach cramped with hunger, a familiar ache he'd learned to ignore. He'd found half a sandwich in a dumpster that morning, and that would have to last until tomorrow. But in the next 30 minutes, Marcus would do something that would change his life forever. Because sometimes the people society overlooks are the ones who see everything. Before we dive deeper into this story, where are you watching from right now? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know what you think. This is only the beginning, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Marcus stretched his legs, wincing at the stiffness. He'd been sitting too long. The gas station owner didn't mind him hanging around as long as he stayed out of sight and didn't bother customers. Small mercies in a world that had shown him precious few. He stood, shoving his hands deep into his pockets, and decided to walk the block. Movement helped, even if it didn't solve anything. The streetlights flickered on as dusk settled over the neighborhood. Marcus walked past the pawn shop, past the laundromat with its warm, detergent-scented air that made him pause for just a moment, past the corner store with bars on the windows. Normal Saturday evening. People heading home from work, couples walking to dinner, the world moving forward like it always did. Then he heard it. A woman's voice, sharp with fear. "Please, just take it. Take the purse." Marcus's head snapped toward the sound. In the alley between the hardware store and the closed furniture shop, he saw them. A woman, maybe in her 30s, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, backing away from a man. The man was tall, wiry, and wearing a black hoodie pulled low. And in his right hand, catching the dim light, was a gun. Marcus's heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away. He was nobody. He had nothing. Getting involved meant risking the only thing he had left, his life. But the woman's face, the terror in her eyes, it reminded him of his mother, years ago, in moments he tried not to remember. He couldn't walk away. Marcus grabbed the first thing he could find, a broken piece of pipe leaning against the alley wall. His hands shook as he gripped it. He took a breath and stepped into the alley. "Hey!" His voice cracked, but it was loud enough. The robber spun around, gun swinging toward Marcus. The woman gasped. For a second, everything froze. Marcus saw the man's face, unshaven, eyes wild with desperation or drugs or both. He saw the woman pressed against the brick wall, clutching her purse like a lifeline. He saw the gun barrel pointing directly at his chest. "Kid, you got 3 seconds to disappear before I paint this alley with you," the robber snarled. Marcus didn't move. He couldn't have explained why, even if someone asked. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was because running away had become all he knew how to do, and he was tired of it. Maybe it was because, for once in his miserable life, he wanted to matter. "Let her go," Marcus said, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. "Whatever you want, it's not worth it." The robber laughed, harsh and humorless. "You're either brave or stupid. I'm betting stupid." He took a step toward Marcus. "Last chance, kid." The woman spoke suddenly, voice trembling. "Please, don't hurt him. He's just a boy." Something in her tone made the robber pause. His eyes darted between Marcus and the woman. Marcus saw the hesitation, the calculation. The man was weighing his options, trying to figure out if this homeless kid was worth the trouble. Marcus tightened his grip on the pipe. "I'm not leaving until she does." The robber's face twisted with rage. He lunged forward, and everything happened at once. Marcus swung the pipe. The robber dodged, faster than Marcus expected. The gun came up. Marcus heard the woman scream. He felt the pipe connect with something. The man's shoulder, maybe his arm. The robber stumbled, cursing viciously. The gun fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed alley. Marcus felt something hot graze his side, a burning line of pain that made him gasp. But he didn't drop the pipe. He swung again, wild and desperate. This time he hit the man's hand. The gun clattered to the pavement. The robber went for it. So did Marcus. They collided, hitting the ground hard. Marcus tasted blood, didn't know if it was his or the robber's. Fists flew. The pipe rolled away. The robber's knee caught Marcus in the ribs, and pain exploded through his chest. But Marcus held on. He grabbed the man's jacket, held him down, and bought seconds. Precious seconds. Run! Marcus shouted to the woman. Get help. She didn't need to be told twice. She bolted from the alley, and Marcus heard her screaming for help, her footsteps echoing down the street. The robber threw Marcus off and scrambled to his feet. For a moment, Marcus thought he'd go for the gun. Instead, the man looked at Marcus with something almost like respect, then turned and ran in the opposite direction, disappearing into the maze of alleys behind the shops. Marcus lay on the cold pavement, breathing hard, his side on fire. He pressed his hand against it and felt wetness. Blood. Not a lot, but enough to scare him. The bullet had grazed him, torn through his jacket and shirt, and left a shallow furrow along his ribs. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind pain and exhaustion and the creeping realization of what had just happened. He'd been shot. He'd fought an armed robber. He'd won, sort of, but now he was bleeding in an alley with no idea what to do next. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Marcus closed his eyes. Cops meant questions. Questions meant attention. Attention meant social services, maybe juvenile detention if they decided he was trouble. He'd avoided the system this long. He didn't want to get caught now. But before he could drag himself up and disappear, he heard footsteps. Running footsteps. Multiple people. He's here. The woman's voice, breathless. He saved me. He's hurt. Marcus opened his eyes to see the woman kneeling beside him, her face pale but determined. Behind her stood 3 men. Big men. Leather vests. Tattoos covering their arms. Beards, sunglasses, even though the sun had set, and heavy boots. They looked like they'd stepped out of a movie about motorcycle clubs. One of them, the biggest one with a shaved head and a gray beard that reached his chest, pushed forward. His vest said President across the back. He knelt down, his expression unreadable. Sarah, he said, voice like gravel. You okay? The woman, Sarah, nodded quickly. I'm fine, Victor. I'm fine because of him. She gestured to Marcus. This boy stopped the guy? He saved my life. Victor looked at Marcus properly for the first time. His eyes were sharp, taking in every detail. The torn clothes. The hollow cheeks. The blood was spreading across Marcus's side. The recognition of what Marcus was. Homeless. Desperate. Invisible. What's your name, kid? Victor asked. Marcus coughed, tasted copper. Marcus. Marcus. Victor repeated it like he was filing it away. You know who this woman is? Marcus shook his head weakly. She's my wife, Victor said quietly. The weight of those words settled over the alley like a thundercloud. You saved my wife. One of the other bikers, a man with long hair and a scar running down his cheek, whistled low. Kid went up against a gun for Sarah. That's either the bravest or dumbest thing I've seen in years. Both, the third biker muttered. Definitely both. Victor didn't smile, but something shifted in his eyes. You need a hospital. I can't, Marcus said automatically. No insurance. No ID. They'll call. They'll call nobody, Victor interrupted. Because you're coming with us. Marcus blinked. What? Sarah touched Victor's arm. Honey, he needs proper medical care. He'll get it, Victor said. But not from people who'll stick him in a system that clearly failed him already. He looked at Marcus again. Can you stand? Marcus wasn't sure, but he tried. With Victor's help, he managed to get to his feet, though the world swayed dangerously. The pain in his side was getting worse, not better. Easy, Victor said. Jackson, bring the truck around. Now. The scarred biker, Jackson, jogged out of the alley. Sirens were getting closer. Victor looked at Sarah. You're going to tell the cops you didn't see the kid. The robber ran off. You hid, and someone scared him away. Got it. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. What about Marcus? Marcus is going to be fine, Victor said. Better than fine. 2 police cruisers pulled up to the alley entrance, lights flashing. Officers poured out. Sarah immediately went to them, directing their attention away from Marcus and the bikers. A black pickup truck rumbled to a stop at the other end of the alley. Victor and the third biker, whose vest read Demon, helped Marcus to the truck. Every step was agony, but Marcus gritted his teeth and stayed quiet. They loaded him into the back seat. Demon climbed in beside him while Victor took the passenger seat. Jackson drove. As they pulled away, Marcus saw the police swarming the alley, saw Sarah pointing in the direction the robber had fled, saw the flashing lights recede behind them. "Where are we going?" Marcus managed to ask. Victor turned in his seat. "Clubhouse. We've got a guy who can patch you up, no questions asked." "Why are you helping me?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Because you helped mine when you had every reason not to. That means something to us." Marcus didn't understand. He didn't understand why these men, Hell's Angels, he realized with a start, seeing the patches on their vests, would risk anything for a homeless kid. But right now, with his side bleeding and his body screaming in pain, he didn't have the energy to question it. He leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. The truck rumbled through the city streets, carrying him toward a future he couldn't have imagined 30 minutes ago. What do you think Marcus should do? Should he trust the Hell's Angels? Or is he walking into more danger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading your theories. The clubhouse was nothing like Marcus expected. He'd imagined some dark, grimy warehouse full of criminals and drugs. Instead, the truck pulled up to a large, well-maintained building on the outskirts of town. It looked almost respectable from the outside. Brick walls, a neat parking lot full of motorcycles lined up in precise rows, security lights illuminating every corner. Jackson helped Marcus out of the truck while Demon went ahead to open the door. Victor stayed close, one hand ready to catch Marcus if he stumbled. They entered through a heavy metal door into a space that was surprisingly clean and organized. Pool tables on one side, a long bar on the other, tables and chairs scattered throughout. Leather couches against the walls. Photos and motorcycle memorabilia hang everywhere. And men. Lots of men in leather vests. All turning to look as Victor walked in with Marcus. "Got a situation," Victor announced to the room. His voice carried absolute authority. "Kid took a bullet for Sarah. Somebody find document." The bikers reacted immediately. Two of them disappeared through a back door. Others cleared one of the tables, shoving aside beer bottles and playing cards. A woman, one of only a few Marcus could see, hurried over with what looked like a first aid kit. "Jesus, Vic," she said, eyeing Marcus with concern. "He's just a baby." "He's a hero," Victor corrected. "Treat him like one." They got Marcus onto the table. He tried to protest, to say he could stand, but his body wasn't cooperating anymore. The room spun. Voices blurred together. Someone cut away his jacket and shirt, exposing the wound. A man pushed through the crowd. Older, maybe 60, with wire-rimmed glasses and surprisingly gentle hands. "I'm Doc," he told Marcus. "Former Army medic. I'm going to take care of you, but this is going to hurt. You understand?" Marcus nodded weakly. Doc worked quickly and efficiently. He cleaned the wound, muttering about Marcus being lucky. The bullet had barely grazed him, more of a deep cut than anything serious. Still hurt like hell, though, especially when Doc started stitching. Marcus bit down on the leather belt someone handed him and tried not to scream. Victor stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the whole thing with an unreadable expression. Sarah had arrived at some point, changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater. She held Marcus's hand while Doc worked, squeezing gently whenever Marcus flinched. "You're doing great," she murmured. "Almost done. You're so brave." Marcus wanted to laugh at that. Brave. He'd been terrified every second in that alley. But he didn't have the breath to argue. Doc finally stepped back. "All done. 18 stitches. Keep it clean, keep it dry, and it'll heal up fine. You got lucky, kid. A few inches to the right, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Marcus's head fell back against the table. Relief washed over him, mixed with exhaustion so profound he could barely keep his eyes open. "He needs rest," Doc said to Victor. "And food. When's the last time you ate?" This last question was directed at Marcus. "This morning," Marcus admitted. "Found half a sandwich." Angry mutters rippled through the gathered bikers. Sarah's hand tightened on his. Victor's jaw clenched. Prospect, Victor barked. A younger man, maybe early 20s, jumped to attention. Get this kid a proper meal. Everything we've got. Now. On it, boss. They moved Marcus to one of the couches, propping him up with pillows. Someone draped a clean blanket over him. The prospect, apparently the newest member still proving himself to the club, returned within minutes carrying a plate piled high with food. Burgers, fries, chicken wings, even a slice of pizza. More food than Marcus had seen in weeks. His hands shook as he reached for it. He tried to eat slowly, to be polite, but his body had other ideas. He inhaled the food, barely tasting it, driven by weeks of hunger. The bikers watched in silence. Some looked angry, though Marcus didn't think it was directed at him. Others looked sad. All of them looked at him differently than people usually did, not through him, but at him. Seeing him, Sarah sat beside him on the couch. "Marcus," she said softly, "where are your parents?" Marcus swallowed a mouthful of burger. "Dead. Mom died 4 years ago. Cancer. Never knew my dad. Foster care. For a while." Marcus didn't elaborate. The group homes, the bad foster families, the final placement where things had gotten so bad he'd run. Better to take his chances on the streets than stay there. Sarah seemed to understand what he wasn't saying. She looked at Victor, who nodded slowly. "How long have you been on the streets?" Victor asked. 8 months, Marcus said. "Give or take." Victor pulled up a chair and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "What you did tonight, Marcus, that took guts. Most people would have walked past. Hell, most adults would have walked past." "She needed help," Marcus said simply. "She's everything to me," Victor said, his voice carrying an edge of emotion he didn't bother to hide. "We've been married 15 years. No kids, just us. She's my world." He paused. "And some piece of garbage tried to rob her at gunpoint." Jackson spoke up from across the room. "Cops are looking for the guy." Sarah gave them a description. "They'll find him." "Maybe," Victor said. "Maybe not. But that's not the point right now." He focused back on Marcus. "The point is, you put yourself between a gun and my wife. You're 16 years old, you've got nothing, and you still chose to help. That says something about your character." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he stayed quiet and kept eating. Victor stood. "Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." "Wait," Marcus said. "I should go. I don't want to be trouble." "You're not going anywhere tonight," Sarah said firmly. "You're injured, you're exhausted, and it's cold outside. You're staying here where it's safe." "But, kid," Victor's voice was gentle but left no room for argument. "You saved my wife. The least we can do is give you a warm place to sleep. Don't insult us by refusing." Marcus looked around at all the faces watching him. Hard men, dangerous men, probably. But right now they were looking at him with something like respect. Like he mattered. "Okay," Marcus whispered. "Thank you." They set him up in a small room off the main hall. Just a cot, a blanket, and a pillow, but it was more than Marcus had slept on in months. Someone left a bottle of water on the floor beside him and pain medication with strict instructions from Doc about how much to take and when. Marcus lay down, every muscle in his body aching, the stitches in his side pulling uncomfortably. But he was warm. He was safe. He was full. For the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt almost human again. He closed his eyes, and sleep took him immediately. He woke to voices. Angry voices. Marcus's eyes snapped open. Sunlight streamed through a small window near the ceiling. Morning. He'd slept through the entire night. The voices were coming from somewhere nearby. The main room, probably. "Can't keep him here, Vic. You know the rules." "Screw the rules. Kid saved Sarah. I get that, and I respect it, but he's not a member. He's not family. What happens when social services come looking? They won't. You don't know that." Marcus sat up slowly, wincing at the pain. The stitches pulled, but not as badly as last night. He stood and made his way to the door, pressing his ear against it. Victor's voice, unmistakable. "He's got nobody. You saw him. When's the last time any of us gave a damn about some homeless kid?" "That's not the point," another voice argued. "The point is, we've got enough heat on us already. Cops watch this place. We start harboring minors, they'll shut us down. So what do you suggest?" Victor's voice had gone cold. Kick him out. Send him back to the streets. Silence. Then a different voice, one Marcus recognized as Jackson's. There might be another option. I'm listening. My sister. She runs a youth shelter across town. Good place, clean, safe. She helps kids get back on their feet. Marcus could stay there. We could keep an eye on him, make sure he's okay, but it wouldn't bring heat down on the club. More silence. Marcus held his breath. I'll talk to him, Victor said finally. See what he wants to do. Talk to me about what? Marcus said, pushing the door open. All heads turned. Victor, Jackson, Sarah, and about a dozen other bikers stood in various positions around the room. They'd been having a full meeting, apparently. Victor didn't look surprised that Marcus had been listening. You're up. How are you feeling? Sore, Marcus admitted. But okay. What's going on? Victor gestured for him to come closer. Marcus walked over, very aware that he was still wearing his torn, dirty clothes from yesterday and probably looked like hell. Marcus, Victor said carefully. You can't stay here. I wish you could, but it's complicated. The club has rules, and having a minor living here would cause problems we can't afford right now. Marcus's stomach sank. Of course. He'd known it was too good to be true. I understand. I can leave. Let me finish, Victor interrupted. Jackson's sister runs a youth shelter. Good place. They help kids like you get housing, education, and job training. Real help, not just a bed for a night. We'd make sure you got set up there. Keep an eye on you. You wouldn't be alone. Marcus looked at Jackson, who nodded. Claire's good people. The place is called Second Chance House. She's helped a lot of kids over the years. You'd have your own room, meals, and counselors to help you figure things out. It sounded too good to be true, which usually meant it was. Why? Marcus asked. Why would you do all this? Sarah stepped forward. She'd been quiet until now, but her eyes were red like she'd been crying. Because you risked everything for me. Because you deserve a chance. Because if we don't help you, who will? Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. All the walls he'd built up over months of survival on the streets. All the numbness he'd wrapped around himself. It crumbled. He tried to speak and couldn't. His throat closed up. Tears burned behind his eyes. Sarah pulled him into a gentle hug, careful of his injury. It's okay, she whispered. You're going to be okay now. Marcus buried his face in her shoulder and cried. Proper, body-shaking sobs that he'd been holding back for months. Years maybe. All the fear, all the loneliness, all the nights wondering if anyone in the world would care if he just disappeared. It poured out of him. The bikers watched in respectful silence. These were hard men who'd seen violence and hardship, but they understood pain. They understood what it meant to be lost. When Marcus finally pulled back, wiping his eyes with his sleeve, Victor handed him a bandana without comment. Marcus cleaned his face, embarrassed by the breakdown. Sorry, he muttered. Don't be, Victor said. Takes strength to feel things. Weakness is pretending you don't. Jackson pulled out his phone. Let me call Claire, set things up. She'll want to meet you first, but I guarantee she'll have a spot for you. As Jackson stepped away to make the call, Marcus looked around at the faces watching him. Thank you. All of you. I don't know how to repay. You already did, Victor said. Now you focus on yourself. Get healthy, get strong, get your life together. He paused. But Marcus? If you ever need anything, you can come find us. You're not part of the club, but you're under our protection now. That means something. A biker with a long beard and kind eyes spoke up. Means if anyone gives you trouble, you tell us. Means you're not alone anymore. Means you're family, Sarah added softly. Marcus didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. Jackson came back. Claire can meet us in an hour. She's got a room ready if everything checks out. He grinned. Told her about what you did. She's already impressed. Let's get you cleaned up first, Sarah said. We've got a shower here, and I think we can find you some clean clothes. They took care of him like he was one of their own. Sarah found clothes that almost fit, jeans and a t-shirt from one of the younger members. Demon showed him to the bathroom and stood guard outside while Marcus showered, making sure no one bothered him. The hot water felt like heaven. Marcus stayed under the spray until his fingers pruned, washing away days of grime and exhaustion. When he emerged, feeling more human than he had in months, Someone had left a plate of eggs and toast outside the door. Marcus ate while the bikers went about their morning routines, working on motorcycles in the garage, cleaning the clubhouse, and making phone calls. Normal life. But nothing about this felt normal to Marcus. These people, outlaws, according to society, were treating him better than anyone had in years. Victor appeared as Marcus was finishing breakfast. Ready? Marcus nodded. They drove to Second Chance House in Victor's truck. Him, Sarah, and Jackson. The shelter was in a quiet neighborhood, a large house that had been converted into a facility for at-risk youth. It looked welcoming, with a well-maintained yard and painted shutters. Nothing like the institutional group homes Marcus had been in before. Claire was waiting on the porch. She looked like Jackson, same dark hair and sharp eyes, but with a warm smile that reached all the way to her face. She came down the steps as they parked. "You must be Marcus," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Claire. Welcome to Second Chance House." Marcus shook her hand nervously. "Hi. Jackson told me what you did yesterday. That was incredibly brave." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Anyone would have." "No," Claire interrupted gently. "They wouldn't have. And that's why you're special." She looked at Victor and Sarah. "Want to come inside? I'll show you around." The house was even better inside. Clean, comfortable, lived in, but not messy. There was a big kitchen where a couple of teenagers were making lunch. A living room with couches and a TV. Bedrooms upstairs, small but private. Claire explained the rules as they walked. Curfew, chores, mandatory counseling sessions, and school or job training requirements. Strict but fair. "We're not just giving you a place to crash," Claire said. "We're helping you build a life. That means education, life skills, healing from whatever brought you here." She looked at Marcus directly. "Are you willing to do the work?" "Yes," Marcus said without hesitation. He meant it. For the first time in his life, someone was offering him a real chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Claire smiled. "Then welcome home, Marcus." She showed him to his room on the second floor. Small, with a twin bed, a desk, a dresser, and a window overlooking the backyard. A poster on the wall showing a mountain landscape. A simple lamp on the nightstand. It was more than Marcus had dared to hope for. "This is yours," Claire said. "Make it your own. We'll get you some personal items, clothes, toiletries, and school supplies. Whatever you need." Marcus stood in the middle of the room, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Claire touched his shoulder lightly. "Just promise me you'll give this a real shot. No running. No giving up." "Deal. Deal," Marcus whispered. They left him alone to settle in. Marcus sat on the bed, testing the mattress. Firm but comfortable. Clean sheets that smelled like detergent. A pillow that wasn't flat or moldy. He lay back and stared at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday, he'd been sleeping behind a gas station, hungry and hopeless. Today he had a room, a bed, a chance, all because he'd chosen to help someone who needed it. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Victor stood in the doorway, Sarah beside him. "We're heading out," Victor said. "But before we go, I want to give you something." He handed Marcus a small card. On it was a phone number written in permanent marker. "That's my cell," Victor said. "You call if you need anything. Day or night, it doesn't matter. You understand." Marcus nodded, clutching the card like a lifeline. Sarah stepped forward and hugged him again. "Take care of yourself, Marcus. We'll check in on you, okay? You're not getting rid of us that easily." "Thank you," Marcus managed. "For everything." Victor extended his hand. Marcus shook it, feeling the strength and calluses of a man who worked with his hands. "You did well, kid. Keep doing good." They left. Marcus heard the truck start up outside, the engine rumbling as they drove away. He was alone again, but this time it felt different. This time, being alone didn't mean abandoned. He looked down at the card in his hand and carefully tucked it into his pocket. Then he lay back down on his new bed in his new room and allowed himself to hope. Are you rooting for Marcus? What do you think his biggest challenge will be at Second Chance House? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts on these stories. The first week at Second Chance House was harder than Marcus expected. Not because the place was bad, it was great, but because adjusting to structure after months of chaos messed with his head. Curfews felt restricting. Regular meals made his stomach hurt. Having a room with a door that locked felt almost too safe, like it couldn't be real. He met the other residents gradually. There were 8 kids total, ranging from 14 to 18. All of them had stories, though nobody pushed for details. There was Keisha, 17, who'd aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. Tommy, 15, whose parents had kicked him out for being gay. Maria, 16, who'd run from an abusive home. Each of them carried wounds, some visible, most not. Claire ran the house with compassionate efficiency. She had counseling sessions with each kid twice a week, mandatory group meetings on Sundays, and a strict schedule that included school, chores, and personal time. She was kind, but didn't tolerate bullshit. The kids respected her because she clearly cared, but also because she didn't treat them like victims. She treated them like people who'd hit a rough patch and needed help getting back on track. Marcus's first counseling session was awkward. He sat across from Claire in her small office, unsure what to say or how much to share. "I'm not going to force you to talk about your past," Claire said gently. "But I need to understand where you're at mentally and emotionally. So we're going to start simple. How are you feeling right now, in this moment?" Marcus thought about it. "Scared," he admitted. "Scared of what?" "That this won't last. That I'll mess it up somehow." Claire nodded, like that made perfect sense. Fear of good things ending is common for kids who've been through trauma. Your brain is protecting you from disappointment. But here's what I want you to understand. Marcus, you earned this spot. You're here because you deserve to be here. My job is to help you believe that. It was a start. School was another challenge. Marcus hadn't been in a classroom in almost a year. Claire enrolled him at the local high school, got him caught up on paperwork, and arranged for tutoring to help him fill in the gaps. His first day back felt surreal. Walking through the halls with hundreds of other teenagers, sitting in desks, taking notes. All things that used to be normal felt foreign now. But slowly, day by day, he adjusted. He started doing homework at the kitchen table with the other second-chance residents. He joined Keisha's study group for math. He even started participating in class, raising his hand, answering questions. Teachers noticed. They didn't know his situation, but they could see he was trying, and they supported him. 2 weeks after moving into Second Chance House, Victor and Sarah showed up unannounced. Marcus was doing dishes after dinner when Claire called him to the living room. "You've got visitors," she said with a knowing smile. Marcus walked in to find Victor and Sarah sitting on the couch, looking somewhat out of place in the homey environment, but smiling warmly. "Hey, kid," Victor said, standing to shake Marcus's hand. "How are you doing?" "Good," Marcus said, and meant it. "Really good, actually." Sarah hugged him, checking him over like a concerned mother. "You look healthier. Have you been eating enough?" Marcus laughed. 3 meals a day plus snacks. I've probably gained 10 pounds. They visited for an hour, asking about school, about the house, and about his injury, which was healing well under Doc's care. Before they left, Victor pulled out an envelope. "This is from the club," he said, handing it to Marcus. "Don't open it now. Wait until we leave." After they drove away, Marcus opened the envelope in his room. Inside was a card signed by what looked like every member of the Hells Angels chapter, dozens of names, some with short messages. "Proud of you, kid. Stay strong. You're one of us." And tucked inside the card was $500 in cash. Marcus stared at the money, overwhelmed. He'd never held this much cash in his life. He immediately went to Claire. "I can't keep this," he said, showing her. "It's too much." Claire looked at the card and the money, then at Marcus's face. "They gave this to you because they believe in you, because they want you to succeed. You can keep it, Marcus. Put it in a savings account. Use it for something important. It's yours." So Marcus opened his first bank account the next day, with Claire's help, deposited the money, got a bank card with his name on it. Another step toward normal. But normal didn't last long. 3 weeks into his stay, trouble found him. Or rather, he found it. Marcus was walking home from school, taking the route Claire had approved, when he heard shouting from a side street. His instincts, the same ones that had gotten him shot, made him investigate instead of walking past. 2 men had cornered a younger kid, maybe 13, against a fence. The kid was crying, trying to protect his backpack while one of the men yanked at it. Just give it up, you little punk. Marcus should have called the police. Should have walked away. Should have remembered that he had a good thing going and couldn't risk it. But he didn't do any of those things. Hey, Marcus shouted, jogging toward them. Leave him alone. The men turned. They were older, maybe early 20s, and clearly looking for easy targets. When they saw Marcus, still skinny despite gaining weight, still young, still non-threatening, they laughed. Another hero, one of them said. What are you going to do about it? Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling the cops. That changed things. The men exchanged glances. The one holding the backpack threw it at the kid, who caught it and immediately ran. The men turned their attention fully to Marcus. You just made a mistake, one of them said, advancing. Marcus backed up, phone still in hand, finger hovering over the call button. Stay back. They didn't. One grabbed for his phone. Marcus dodged, but the second man caught his jacket. They shoved him against a car. Marcus struggled, trying to break free, his side screaming where the stitches were still healing. Then a motorcycle roared around the corner. Then another, and another. Jackson and Demon, riding side by side, engines thundering. They pulled up to the curb with perfect timing. Jackson killed his engine and swung off his bike in one smooth motion. Problem here? He asked calmly. The men holding Marcus immediately let go. Everyone knew who the Hells Angels were. Everyone knew you didn't mess with them or anyone under their protection. No problem, one of the men said quickly. Just a misunderstanding. Looked like assault to me, Demon said, cracking his knuckles. Should we call the cops? Or handle this ourselves? The men practically tripped over themselves as they backed away. We're going. We're going. They disappeared down the street at almost a run. Jackson turned to Marcus, who was leaning against the car, breathing hard. You okay? Marcus nodded. How did you know I was here? Jackson grinned. We didn't. Just happened to be riding through. Lucky timing. He paused. Though Claire might have mentioned your route home. And we might have made a habit of checking on you now and then. You've been following me? Protecting you. Demon corrected. There's a difference. Marcus didn't know whether to be grateful or annoyed. I can take care of myself. Yeah, we saw that with the armed robber, Jackson said dryly. Look, kid, we're not trying to control you. But Victor made you family. That means we look out for you. Get used to it. They gave Marcus a ride home on the back of Jackson's bike. Marcus's first time actually riding a motorcycle. The speed, the wind, the rumble of the engine beneath him. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Claire was waiting on the porch when they pulled up. She took one look at Marcus's torn jacket and Jackson's serious expression and sighed. What happened? They told her. Marcus expected her to be angry, to lecture him about putting himself in danger. Instead, she just shook her head with something like fond exasperation. You've got a hero complex, Marcus. We're going to have to work on that. He helped a kid who needed it, Jackson said, defending him. That's not a complex. That's character. Claire smiled slightly. I suppose you're right. She looked at Marcus. But next time, call for help first, act second. Understand? Yes, ma'am. After Jackson and Demon left, Claire sat Marcus down in the kitchen. I need you to understand something. You've been given a second chance here, both at this house and in your life. But that doesn't mean you're invincible. You can't save everyone, Marcus. Sometimes you have to save yourself first. But that kid could have been fine, Claire interrupted. He could have given up his backpack and walked away. But because you intervened, you put yourself at risk. Again, you were lucky Jackson showed up. Next time you might not be. Marcus knew she was right, but it didn't change how he felt. So I should just ignore people who need help? No, Claire said carefully. I'm saying you should be smart about how you help. Call the police. Alert adults. Don't put yourself in situations where you could get seriously hurt. You matter too, Marcus. Your life has value. Don't throw it away trying to be a hero. It was a lesson Marcus struggled with. Because for so long, his life hadn't felt valuable. Nobody had cared whether he lived or died. The only time he'd felt like he mattered was when he was helping someone else. How was he supposed to stop doing the one thing that made him feel human? That night, unable to sleep, Marcus called the number Victor had given him. It rang 3 times before Victor answered, voice gravelly with sleep. Marcus? You okay? Yeah. Sorry, I know it's late. I needed to talk to someone. Hold on. Rustling sounds. Victor was getting up, moving somewhere he could talk privately. Okay. What's going on? Marcus told him everything. The incident after school, Jackson showing up, Claire's lecture about not trying to save everyone. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She's right, you know. You can't save the world, Marcus." "I know." But, Victor continued, "she's also wrong. Someone like you, with your instincts, your compassion, the world needs that. Just needs to be tempered with wisdom. You don't stop helping people. You just get smarter about how you do it." "How?" "By building yourself up first," Victor said. "Get strong. Get educated. Get resources. Then you can help people from a position of strength instead of desperation. That's what we do in the club. We protect our own. We help our community, but we do it smart. We do it organized. We don't go off half-cocked and get ourselves killed." That made sense to Marcus. "So what do? You keep your head down. You focus on school. You heal. You grow. And when you're ready, when you're older and stronger and smarter, then you figure out how to help people the right way." Victor paused. "But for now, you let us handle the protecting. That's our job." "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "For everything. Get some sleep, kid. And Marcus? Call any time you need to. I mean that." They hung up. Marcus lay in bed, thinking about what Victor had said. Build himself up first. It made sense. He couldn't help anyone if he was broken himself. So that's what he did. He threw himself into school with renewed focus. His grades improved. He joined the chess club, discovered he had a talent for strategy. He started working out with Tommy in the small gym Second Chance House had set up in the basement. His body filled out, got stronger. The hollow-cheeked ghost who'd arrived weeks ago was slowly being replaced by a healthy teenager. He kept going to counseling with Claire, peeling back layers of trauma, learning to deal with his past instead of running from it. It was hard work. Sometimes he wanted to quit, but he didn't. And every week, Victor and Sarah visited. Sometimes they brought other club members, Jackson, Demon, and a biker named Rusty who was surprisingly funny. They checked on Marcus, encouraged him, and reminded him he had people who cared. The holidays came. Thanksgiving at Second Chance House was different from anything Marcus had experienced. Claire cooked a huge meal. All the residents helped. They went around the table saying what they were grateful for. When it was Marcus's turn, he looked at the faces around him, the kids who'd become friends, Claire who'd become family, and he said simply, "I'm grateful for second chances." Everyone raised their glasses, sparkling cider for the kids, and drank to that. 2 days after Thanksgiving, everything changed. Marcus was in his room doing homework when Claire knocked. Her face was serious. "Marcus, you have visitors. You should come downstairs." "Victor and Sarah?" "No. Police." Marcus's stomach dropped. Had someone found out he'd been living on the streets? Was there some warrant he didn't know about? Had the system finally caught up to him? He followed Claire downstairs, heart hammering. 2 police officers stood in the living room, a man and a woman, both looking official and severe. "Marcus Thompson?" the woman asked. "Yes." She pulled out a photograph. "Do you recognize this man?" Marcus looked at the photo and froze. It was the robber, the man who'd held a gun on Sarah, who'd shot Marcus, who'd disappeared into the night. "Yes," Marcus said carefully. "That's the man who robbed Sarah, Victor's wife." The officers exchanged glances. The woman continued, "His name is Derek Cole. He was arrested 2 days ago attempting another armed robbery. When we ran his prints, we connected him to several other cases, including the assault on Sarah Hendricks. We need your official statement about what happened that night." Relief washed through Marcus. They weren't here to arrest him. They wanted his help catching a criminal. "Of course," Marcus said. "I'll tell you everything." He spent the next hour giving his statement. Every detail he could remember. The officers recorded it, took notes, and asked follow-up questions. When they finished, the male officer said, "Your testimony will be crucial in putting this guy away. He's hurt a lot of people. What you did, stopping him that night, you may have saved lives." After they left, Claire hugged Marcus. "I'm proud of you. That took courage, reliving that night. Will I have to testify in court?" "Probably, but we'll help you prepare. You won't be alone." Marcus called Victor immediately, told him about the police visit, about Derek Cole being caught. Victor's response was simple. Good. He'll get what he deserves. And Marcus? When the trial comes, we'll be there. All of us. You won't face him alone. The trial was set for early January. Marcus tried not to think about it, tried to focus on school and Christmas and normal teenage things. But it loomed in the back of his mind, a storm cloud on the horizon. Christmas at Second Chance House was surprisingly joyful. Claire went all out, decorations, a tree, presents for everyone. The Hells Angels showed up on Christmas Eve with a truck full of gifts. Victor handed Marcus a wrapped box. From all of us, he said. Inside was a leather jacket. Not a biker vest with patches, but a good quality jacket that would keep Marcus warm through the winter. On the inside collar, someone had stitched his name in small letters. So you remember, Sarah said softly. You're part of this family now. Marcus wore the jacket every day. The new year came and went. Then it was time. The trial of Derek Cole began on a cold January morning. Marcus dressed carefully in clothes Claire had bought him, dress pants, a button-up shirt, and his new jacket. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Not the homeless kid anymore. Someone different. Someone stronger. Claire drove him to the courthouse. As they pulled into the parking lot, Marcus saw them. Motorcycles lined up along the curb. Dozens of them. The entire Hells Angels chapter had shown up. Victor stood at the courthouse steps, arms crossed, watching for Marcus. When he saw him, he nodded. Sarah was beside him, along with Jackson, Demon, Rusty, and at least 20 other bikers Marcus had met over the past months. Told you, Victor said as Marcus approached. You don't face this alone. They walked into the courthouse together, Marcus, Claire, and an army of bikers. People stared, whispered, moved out of the way. But Marcus felt safe, protected, supported in a way he'd never experienced before. The trial lasted 3 days. Marcus testified on the second day. He sat in the witness box, looked at Derek Cole sitting at the defense table, and told the truth. Every word, every detail. His voice shook at first, but grew stronger as he spoke. Because he wasn't that scared kid in the alley anymore. He'd grown. He'd healed. He'd become someone who could face his fear and speak truth to power. The defense attorney tried to rattle him, suggested Marcus had misremembered, implied he was lying for attention, questioned his character, bringing up his homelessness, suggesting he was unreliable. The prosecutor objected. The judge sustained it. But the damage was done. Marcus felt small again, insignificant, like maybe he didn't matter after all. During the lunch recess, Victor found Marcus in the hallway. He looked furious. That lawyer's trying to tear you apart, Victor said. Don't let him. What if he's right? Marcus said quietly. What if nobody believes me? Victor grabbed Marcus's shoulders, not hard, but firm enough to get his attention. Listen to me. You are the most credible person in that courtroom. You're a kid who risked his life to save a stranger. You've rebuilt yourself from nothing. You've got more integrity in your pinky finger than that defense attorney has in his whole body. Don't you dare let him make you doubt yourself. Sarah appeared beside them. We believe you, Marcus. All of us. And the jury will too. They were right. The next day, the jury came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Armed robbery, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder. Derek Cole was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Justice. Real, tangible justice. Marcus walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than he had in years. The bikers surrounded him, celebrating, clapping him on the back. Strangers stopped to shake his hand, to thank him. Local news cameras filmed the whole thing. That night, the Hells Angels threw a party at the clubhouse. Nothing wild. Claire had made them promise to keep it appropriate since Marcus was still a minor. But music, food, laughter, celebration. They'd won. Good had triumphed over evil. Victor raised a glass and called for silence. To Marcus, he said, who showed us that courage doesn't require size or age or resources. Just heart. Everyone drank to that. As the party wound down, Marcus stood outside under the stars, breathing in the cold night air. He thought about where he'd been a few months ago, cold, hungry, invisible, and where he was now, warm, safe, surrounded by people who cared. Sarah came out to join him. How are you feeling? As I can breathe for the first time in forever, Marcus said honestly. She smiled. You know what Victor said after you saved me that night? He said, that kid just changed his whole life and doesn't even know it yet. And he was right. I didn't do it for a reward. I know. That's why it mattered. Sarah looked up at the stars. You're going to do great things, Marcus. I can feel it. Marcus didn't know if that was true, but for the first time in his life, he believed it might be possible. What do you think Marcus should do next? Should he stay focused on school, or do you think he should find more ways to help his community? Drop your thoughts below. The months after the trial settled into a routine that Marcus had never experienced before, stability. He continued living at Second Chance House, attending school, and maintaining good grades. Spring came, bringing warmer weather and the promise of new beginnings. But stability didn't mean life got boring. If anything, it got more interesting. One Saturday in late March, Victor showed up at Second Chance House with an unexpected proposal. The club's starting a community outreach program. He told Marcus over coffee in Claire's kitchen. Youth mentorship, job training, that kind of thing. We want to change how people see us, not just as troublemakers, but as people who give back to the community. That's great, Marcus said, unsure why Victor was telling him this. We want you to be part of it. Help us design the program, figure out what kids actually need. You've been on both sides, living rough and getting help. You understand the perspective better than any of us. Marcus blinked. Me? I'm just a kid. You're a kid who's been through hell and came out stronger, Victor corrected. That's exactly the perspective we need. Plus, kids will relate to you better than to a bunch of crusty old bikers. Claire, who'd been listening from across the kitchen, spoke up. I think it's a good idea. You could use the experience, Marcus, and it could count toward your community service hours for school. So Marcus agreed. The Hells Angels Community Youth Program launched in April. They converted part of the clubhouse into a community center, keeping the biker stuff separate, but creating a welcoming space for neighborhood kids. They offered tutoring, job skills training, and even motorcycle maintenance classes for teenagers interested in mechanics. Marcus became an unofficial liaison between the kids and the bikers. He talked to teenagers who came in angry or scared or lost, helped them feel comfortable, showed them that the big, scary bikers were actually pretty decent people. It was rewarding work, and it made Marcus feel useful in a way he'd never experienced. One kid in particular caught Marcus's attention, a 14-year-old named Danny who reminded Marcus painfully of himself. Skinny, withdrawn, clearly not eating enough. Marcus saw the signs immediately. He approached Danny after a tutoring session. Hey, you doing okay? Danny shrugged. Fine. Are you eating regular meals? Danny's eyes flickered away. Sure. Because if you're not, that's okay. No judgment. I get it. You get it. Danny's voice carried skepticism and defensiveness. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Danny a photo, one of the only ones he had from before Second Chance House. Marcus, at his lowest point, hollow-cheeked and hopeless-looking, was sitting behind that gas station. That was me 6 months ago, Marcus said quietly. I get it more than you know. Danny stared at the photo, then at Marcus. What happened? I got help. And I let people who cared actually help me instead of pushing them away. Nobody cares about me. That's not true. I care. And I just met you. Marcus leaned forward. Look, I'm not going to pressure you into anything. But if you need help, food, a place to stay, someone to talk to, I can connect you with resources. The same ones that saved my life. Danny didn't respond right away. But the next week, he came back. And the week after that. Slowly, Marcus learned his story. Parents who'd kicked him out. Sleeping at friends' houses when he could, in parks when he couldn't. Barely surviving. Marcus talked to Claire. Within a month, Danny had a spot at Second Chance House. You're doing good work, Claire told Marcus. Reaching kids I couldn't get through to. You've got a gift for this. Maybe he did. Or maybe he just understood what it felt like to be invisible and desperate, and he refused to let another kid feel that way if he could help it. School ended in June. Marcus had completed his junior year with a 3.5 GPA, something he never would have believed possible months ago. He'd even gotten onto the honor roll. Victor and Sarah threw him a celebration dinner, presenting him with a framed certificate like proud parents. "We're so proud of you," Sarah said, hugging him tight. So proud. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He'd never had parents who were proud of him. Never had anyone celebrate his achievements. It was overwhelming in the best way. Summer brought new opportunities. The community center expanded. More kids showed up. Some of the bikers started teaching motorcycle repair classes, and Marcus sat in on them, learning alongside teenagers from the neighborhood. He discovered he had an aptitude for mechanics, something that surprised him. "You've got good hands," Rusty told him, watching Marcus carefully reassemble a carburetor. "Ever think about doing this professionally?" Marcus hadn't, but the idea intrigued him. A trade, a skill, a career path that didn't require college he couldn't afford. It was something to consider. In July, something unexpected happened. A reporter from the local newspaper showed up at the community center, wanting to do a story on the Hells Angels outreach program. Victor was hesitant at first. The club had a complicated relationship with the media, but eventually agreed. The reporter interviewed several people: Victor, Jackson, Claire, and some of the kids who'd been helped by the program. "And Marcus, tell me your story," the reporter said, recorder running. "How did you end up connected with the Hells Angels?" Marcus told an edited version. He left out some of the more painful details, but he was honest about being homeless, about saving Sarah, about how the club had helped him rebuild his life. The article ran the following week with the headline, "From Homeless Hero to Community Leader. Teen Story Shows the Heart Behind the Hells Angels." Marcus's photo was right there on the front page, him standing between Victor and Sarah, all three of them smiling. The article was fair and balanced, highlighting both Marcus's journey and the club's commitment to community service. The response was overwhelming. Phone calls to Second Chance House. People want to donate. Other youth organizations are reaching out for partnerships. Even the mayor, a different one than before, thankfully, contacted Victor about potential city support for the program. Marcus became somewhat famous locally. People recognized him at the grocery store, at school. Some treated him like a celebrity, which made him deeply uncomfortable. But others approached him with their own stories, their own struggles, asking for advice or help. He did his best to help everyone, though Claire kept reminding him about boundaries and self-care. "You can't save everyone, Marcus," she said gently. "And you shouldn't try. I know. But if I can help even one person the way I was helped, isn't that worth it?" Claire smiled. "Yes, just don't lose yourself in the process." August brought a surprise visitor, Sarah's sister, Amanda, who ran a nonprofit organization focused on youth homelessness in the state capital. She'd read the article and wanted to meet Marcus. "I'm trying to establish a program similar to what you're doing here," Amanda explained over lunch. "Youth-led outreach, peer mentoring, that kind of thing. I'd love to get your input." They spent hours discussing possibilities. What worked, what didn't, what homeless kids actually needed versus what adults thought they needed. Amanda took copious notes. "Have you ever thought about advocacy work?" she asked. "Speaking to legislators, testifying about policies, that sort of thing?" "Me?" Marcus laughed. "I'm nobody. You're a survivor with a powerful story," Amanda corrected. "And you understand these issues from personal experience. That makes you somebody. That makes you valuable." The idea terrified Marcus. Speaking to politicians? Testifying before committees? He was just a kid. But Amanda planted the seed. In September, Marcus started his senior year of high school. He was almost unrecognizable from the scared, starving kid who'd hidden behind a gas station a year ago. He'd gained weight, built muscle, and found confidence. He was respected at school, known for being smart and kind and genuinely helpful. He'd also started thinking seriously about his future. College wasn't in the cards financially, but technical school was a possibility. Or maybe continuing to work in community outreach. Or possibly, if he was brave enough, advocacy work like Amanda had mentioned. One evening in late September, Victor called with news. "The club's been invited to speak at a state conference on youth homelessness. They want representatives to talk about our program. I want you to come with us." "Victor, I don't do public speaking." "You spoke in a courtroom full of people and helped put a criminal away," Victor interrupted. "You can handle a conference room." "And Marcus?" "They specifically asked for you. By name. Because of that article." So Marcus found himself, 2 weeks later, standing on a stage in front of 200 people, social workers, nonprofit directors, government officials, talking about his experience with homelessness and how community programs had saved his life. He was terrified at first. His hands shook. His voice wavered. But then he looked out into the audience and saw Victor and Sarah in the front row, both giving him encouraging nods. He saw Claire, beaming with pride. He saw Amanda, recording the presentation on her phone. And he found his voice. He talked about the invisibility of homelessness, how easy it is for society to ignore kids sleeping in alleys and dumpsters. He talked about the shame that keeps people from asking for help. He talked about how one act of kindness, Victor and Sarah taking him in after he'd saved her, had changed the entire trajectory of his life. "I'm not special," Marcus said, voice carrying across the room. "I'm just a kid who got lucky. But there are thousands of kids out there who aren't getting lucky. Kids sleeping outside tonight, scared and hungry, convinced nobody cares. We can change that. We have to change that." The applause was thunderous. People stood. Several audience members were crying. Afterward, at least a dozen people gave Marcus their business cards, wanting to talk more, wanting to collaborate, wanting to bring similar programs to their communities. Amanda hugged him tight. "You're going to change the world," she whispered. "I just know it." Marcus wasn't sure about that. But maybe, just maybe, he could change the world for a few kids. And wasn't that enough? The fall passed in a blur of activity. School, community center work, speaking engagements at local organizations. Marcus's life had become busier than he'd ever imagined possible. But it was a good, busy, purposeful busy. In November, exactly 1 year after the night he'd saved Sarah, the Hells Angels threw another party. But this one was different. This was a celebration specifically for Marcus. 1 year ago, Victor announced to the gathered crowd of bikers, Second Chance House residents, community members, and friends, "This kid changed all our lives. He showed us what real courage looks like. And now we get to watch him change the world." They presented Marcus with a plaque, honorary member, Hells Angels Community Outreach Program, for courage, compassion, and commitment to making a difference. Marcus tried to speak, found his throat too tight, and settled for a simple, "Thank you." After the party, sitting outside under the same stars he'd looked at a year ago, Sarah found him again. "Déjà vu," she said, sitting beside him. Marcus smiled. "Little bit. I never thank you properly, you know. For that night. You've thanked me plenty. Not for saving my life. I mean, yes, for that too. But for showing Victor and me that we had more to give. That we could make a real difference in this community. You inspired all of this." She gestured at the clubhouse, now both a biker hangout and a thriving community center. None of it would exist if you hadn't been brave that night. Marcus thought about that. How one choice, one moment of courage, had rippled outward in ways he never could have predicted. How saving one person had led to helping dozens more. "I'm glad I was there," he said quietly. "I'm glad I didn't walk away." "So are we." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars, listening to the distant sounds of laughter from inside. Marcus thought about how far he'd come and how far he still had to go. Senior year would end in a few months. Then he'd have to figure out his next steps, his future, his path forward. But for now, sitting under the stars with a woman who'd become family, supported by a club of bikers who'd become his protectors, living in a house that had given him a second chance. For now, Marcus was exactly where he needed to be. And that was enough. Hey, before we continue, what did you think of Marcus's journey so far? Have you or someone you know ever been helped by an unexpected source like Marcus was? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. Winter came again, bringing Marcus's 18th birthday. He'd made it. Legally an adult, though he still felt like a kid half the time. Second Chance House threw him a party. The Hells Angels threw him another one. He got more gifts and attention in 1 week than he'd received in his entire childhood. The most meaningful gift came from Victor and Sarah, a bank account they'd been secretly contributing to for months, seeded with enough money to cover technical school tuition or first and last month's rent on an apartment, whichever path Marcus chose. "We can't give you back the years you lost," Victor said simply. "But we can give you a foundation for the future." Marcus cried. He wasn't embarrassed about it anymore. But turning 18 brought complications, too. Second Chance House was designed for minors. Now that Marcus was legally an adult, he'd have to transition out eventually. The thought terrified him, not because he'd be homeless again, but because Second Chance House had become home. These people had become family. Claire sensed his anxiety. "We're not kicking you out," she assured him. "You can stay until you graduate in June. After that, we'll help you find independent housing. You're not going to be abandoned, Marcus. We're going to make sure you land on your feet." So Marcus focused on finishing high school strong. He'd been accepted to a technical college program for automotive technology starting in the fall. Jackson had even promised him a part-time job at his motorcycle repair shop once he completed the basic coursework. Everything was falling into place. March brought unexpected news. Amanda called, excited. The state legislature is holding hearings on youth homelessness funding. They're looking for testimonials from people with lived experience. "I nominated you. Would you be willing to testify?" Marcus's stomach dropped. "Testify? Like, in front of politicians?" "Yes. I know it's intimidating. But Marcus, your story could change minds. Could change policy. Could help thousands of kids." He talked it over with Claire, with Victor and Sarah, with the Second Chance House residents. Everyone encouraged him to do it. "Scared is normal," Tommy told him. "But you've faced scarier things than politicians." So Marcus said yes. The hearing was scheduled for early April. Amanda coached him on what to say, how to structure his testimony, and how to stay calm under pressure. Victor offered to drive him to the state capitol. Sarah insisted on coming too. "You're not doing this alone," she said firmly. The day of the hearing, Marcus wore his best clothes, a suit Sarah had bought him specifically for this occasion. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the polished young man staring back. Where was the hollow-cheeked homeless kid? Gone. Replaced by someone who looked capable and confident, even if he didn't entirely feel it. The drive to the Capitol took 2 hours. Marcus spent most of it reviewing his testimony notes, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. Victor drove in steady silence while Sarah kept up a stream of encouraging chatter from the back seat. The Capitol building was imposing, marble columns, high ceilings, and echoing hallways. Amanda met them at the entrance, looking professional in a blazer and slacks. "You ready?" she asked Marcus. "No, but I'll do it anyway." She grinned. That's the spirit. The hearing room was smaller than Marcus expected, but still intimidating. A panel of legislators sat at a raised desk at the front. Rows of chairs for observers filled the rest of the space, about half of them occupied by people Marcus assumed were other advocates, lobbyists, maybe some reporters. Victor, Sarah, and Amanda sat in the front row of the public seating. Victor caught Marcus's eye and gave a subtle nod. "You've got this." Marcus was the third person to testify. He sat at the small table facing the legislators, adjusted the microphone, and took a deep breath. "My name is Marcus Thompson. A year and a half ago, I was homeless. I slept behind a gas station, ate from dumpsters, and believed nobody in the world cared whether I lived or died." The room went quiet. He had their attention. Marcus told his story. Not all of it. They had time limits. But the important parts. The desperation of street life. The moment he chose to help Sarah despite having nothing himself. How the Hells Angels had taken him in. How Second Chance House had given him structure and support. How community programs had literally saved his life. "I'm not special," Marcus said, echoing the words he'd spoken at the conference. "I'm just a kid who got lucky." But luck shouldn't determine whether homeless youth live or die, succeed or fail. Policy should. Support should. Funding should. He talked about the gaps in the system. The kids who fell through the cracks. The teenagers are too old for child services, but too young to access adult resources. The lack of housing, the lack of mental health support, and the lack of basic humanity extended to society's most vulnerable. "You have the power to change this," Marcus finished, looking directly at the legislators. "You have the power to fund programs that work, to create safety nets that actually catch people. I'm proof that investment in youth pays off. I'm going to college in the fall. I have a job lined up. I'm going to be a productive, tax-paying citizen. All because someone invested in me when I had nothing to offer in return." He paused. "How many more kids like me are out there? waiting for someone to invest in them. How many future doctors, teachers, and engineers are sleeping in alleys tonight because we as a society decided they weren't worth saving? I'm asking you to be the people who say they are worth it. Please. Silence. Then one legislator started clapping. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. Marcus sat back, hands shaking, barely believing what had just happened. Amanda was crying. Sarah was crying. Even Victor looked suspiciously misty-eyed. After the hearing, several legislators approached Marcus personally. They shook his hand, thanked him for his testimony, and promised to support increased funding. Whether they'd actually follow through remained to be seen, but at least they'd heard him. At least his story had been told. A reporter from a major state newspaper asked for an interview. Amanda handled the scheduling while Marcus tried to process everything that had just happened. You did it, Victor said, clapping him on the shoulder. You really did it. Did it work, though? Will they actually change anything? Maybe. Maybe not. But they heard you. And so did everyone else in that room. Sometimes that's all you can do. Speak the truth and hope it sticks. The drive home was quieter, Marcus exhausted from the emotional intensity of the day. But it was a good exhausted, the kind that comes from doing something meaningful. The story ran the following week. Former homeless teen testifies before state legislature, calls for increased youth services funding. It included a photo of Marcus at the hearing, looking serious and determined. The article quoted his testimony extensively and noted that several legislators had already drafted bills inspired by his words. Marcus's phone exploded with messages. Friends from school, kids from the community center, people he'd helped over the past year, all congratulating him, expressing pride, sharing the article. It was overwhelming but also affirming. His voice mattered. His story mattered. He mattered. April turned into May. Graduation approached. Marcus maintained his grades, continued his community center work, and did another speaking engagement at a youth shelter in a neighboring city. His life had become a balancing act of school, advocacy, and planning for the future. Second Chance House threw a graduation party for Marcus and two other residents who were also finishing high school. Claire made a speech about watching them grow, about being proud of how far they'd come. She presented each of them with a scrapbook she'd been secretly maintaining. Photos from their time at the house, notes from milestones, memories preserved forever. Marcus flipped through his scrapbook later that night. There were photos of him looking skeletal and scared when he first arrived. Photos of him laughing with other residents. Photos of him at the community center, teaching a younger kid how to fix a bicycle. Photos of him at the courthouse after the trial, surrounded by Hell's Angels. Photos of him speaking at events, growing more confident with each appearance. It was a visual record of his transformation. From broken to whole. From invisible to seen. From hopeless to purposeful. I'm going to miss this place, he told Claire the next morning. The place will still be here, she said gently. And so will I. You're not losing us, Marcus. You're just moving forward. Graduation day arrived on a perfect June afternoon. Marcus walked across the stage in his cap and gown, accepted his diploma, and heard his name called to thunderous applause. Because half the Hells Angels chapter was in the audience, along with every Second Chance House resident, Claire, Amanda, and what felt like half the neighborhood. Victor and Sarah sat in the front row, both beaming like proud parents. When Marcus found them after the ceremony, Sarah hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. We're so proud of you, she said for probably the 100th time. But Marcus never got tired of hearing it. Couldn't have done it without you, Marcus said honestly. Yes, you could have, Victor said. But I'm glad you didn't have to. They took about 1 million photos. Marcus with Victor and Sarah. Marcus with Claire and the Second Chance House kids. Marcus with Jackson, Demon, Rusty, and the other bikers who'd become his extended family. Marcus alone, in his cap and gown, holding his diploma, looking genuinely happy. That night, the Hells Angels threw one last party for Marcus. But this time, Victor made an announcement that surprised everyone. Marcus has been part of this family for 1.5 years now. He's helped us build something real in this community. He's shown us what it means to give back. And while he's not old enough to be a full patch member, and might never want to be, we want him to know he's always got a place here. Victor held up a leather vest. not full colors, but a vest nonetheless. On the back was embroidered, Hell's Angels Community Outreach, founding member. "This is yours," Victor said, handing it to Marcus. "Whether you wear it or hang it on your wall, it's a reminder that you belong, that you matter, that you're one of us." Marcus took the vest with shaking hands. The leather was soft, well-made, and clearly expensive. And on the front, over the heart, was a small embroidered patch. "Hero." "I'm not a hero," Marcus protested weakly. "Yeah, you are," Jackson said. "You saved Sarah. You helped build this community center. You testified before the legislature. You've helped a dozen kids get off the streets. If that's not heroic, I don't know what is." Marcus put on the vest. It fit perfectly. He looked around at all the faces watching him, people who'd become family in every way that mattered, and felt something he'd never felt before: belonging. He belonged somewhere. He belonged to someone. He mattered. "Thank you," he managed. "For everything. For saving me. For believing in me. For giving me a second chance when I didn't think I deserved one." "You always deserved it," Sarah said softly. "You just needed someone to see it." The party continued late into the night. Music played. People laughed. Stories were told. And Marcus, wearing his vest, surrounded by his chosen family, felt complete in a way he never had before. What an incredible journey for Marcus, right? If you've made it this far, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that one act of courage can change everything. Drop a comment below telling me what lesson you're taking away from Marcus's story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. But Marcus's story doesn't end there. The final chapter was yet to come. July brought change. Marcus moved into a small studio apartment near the technical college, funded partially by the account Victor and Sarah had set up and partially by financial aid. It was modest, just a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was his first real home in years. Claire helped him move in, making sure he had all the essentials: sheets, towels, dishes, and basic furniture. She was emotional the whole time, though she tried to hide it. "I'm going to be fine," Marcus assured her. "You taught me everything I need to know." "I know you will," Claire said, wiping her eyes. "Doesn't mean I won't worry." Victor and Sarah came by that first evening with dinner and a housewarming gift. A framed photo of all of them together at Marcus's graduation, looking like the family they'd become. "For your wall," Sarah said. "So you remember where you came from and who you've got in your corner." Marcus hung it above his desk, the first decoration in his new place. The technical college started in August. Marcus threw himself into his automotive technology courses with the same determination he'd applied to everything else. He was good at it, really good. His instructors noticed, often using his work as an example for other students. He started his part-time job at Jackson's motorcycle repair shop in September. The work was hard, greasy, and physical, but Marcus loved it. There was something satisfying about taking something broken and making it whole again, kind of like what had been done for him. The community center continued to thrive. Marcus stopped by several times a week, mentoring newer kids, helping with the tutoring program, and teaching basic motorcycle maintenance. Danny, the kid Marcus had helped get into Second Chance House, was thriving too, doing well in school, gaining weight, slowly healing from his trauma. "You saved my life," Danny told Marcus one afternoon while they were working on a bike together. "Nah," Marcus said. "I just pointed you in the right direction. You did the hard work." "Same thing someone did for you, right?" Marcus smiled. "Yeah, same thing." In October, the state legislature passed a comprehensive youth homelessness bill, allocating millions in new funding for shelters, outreach programs, and support services. Several legislators specifically cited Marcus's testimony as influential in their decision to support the bill. Amanda called him ecstatic. "You did it, Marcus. You actually changed state policy." Marcus wasn't sure what to feel. Pride? Relief? Hope? Maybe all three. "How many kids will this help?" he asked. "Thousands. Over the next few years, thousands of kids who might have ended up sleeping in alleys or worse. They'll have options now. Safe places. Support systems. Second chances." She paused. "Like you had." The weight of that settled over Marcus. Thousands of kids. His story, his testimony, His courage to speak up, it had rippled outward in ways he never could have imagined. Winter came again, 2 years since that night in the alley. Marcus was 19 now, no longer a kid, but not quite fully adult either. He was excelling in school, doing well at work, maintaining his community center involvement, and living independently for the first time in his life. On the second anniversary of saving Sarah, Victor called him. "You busy tonight?" "Not really." "What?" "Come to the clubhouse. We're having a small gathering. Want you there." Marcus showed up to find the place decorated with banners and balloons. Not a huge party, just the core group. Victor, Sarah, Jackson, Demon, Rusty, Claire, some of the kids from Second Chance House, including Danny and Amanda, who'd driven in from the capital. "What's all this?" Marcus asked. Victor stepped forward. 2 years ago today, you saved my wife's life. You changed the trajectory of your own life. And whether you realize it or not, you changed all of ours, too." He gestured around the room. "This community center exists because of you. The state funding bill exists because of you. Danny and a dozen other kids got help because of you. You started something, Marcus. A ripple that keeps spreading." Sarah spoke up, voice emotional. "We wanted to mark this anniversary, not just to celebrate what you did for me, but to celebrate who you've become. Because the scared homeless kid who stepped into that alley, he's gone. In his place is a strong, compassionate young man who's making a real difference in the world." Amanda added, "I've been working in youth services for 15 years. I've met a lot of kids, helped a lot of people, but I've never seen anyone transform themselves the way you have, Marcus. And more than that, I've never seen anyone so committed to lifting others once they've climbed out themselves. You're special." Marcus felt his eyes burning. "I'm just doing what you all did for me, paying it forward." "Exactly," Claire said. "And that's why you matter so much. Because you didn't just take the help and run. You turned around and extended your hand to the next person." They presented him with a plaque, signed by everyone in the room. "To Marcus Thompson, hero, advocate, and inspiration. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like." Marcus set the plaque down carefully and looked around at all the faces watching him. These people, they'd saved him in every way a person could be saved. They'd given him food, shelter, education, opportunity, love, and family. They'd seen him when he was invisible. They'd valued him when he felt worthless. They'd believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. "I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted, "except thank you. For everything. For seeing me. For caring. For not giving up on me. You gave me a second chance, and I promise I won't waste it." Victor smiled. "You haven't wasted a single day, kid. And you won't waste any in the future either. Because that's not who you are." They celebrated late into the night. No wild party, just good food, laughter, and the comfort of being surrounded by people who genuinely cared. Marcus soaked it all in, committing every moment to memory. As the evening wound down and people started leaving, Sarah pulled Marcus aside. "I never told you this," she said quietly. "But the night you saved me, I was coming from the hospital. I'd just gotten some bad news, medical stuff, nothing life-threatening but scary. I was distracted, not paying attention, easy prey. And then that man grabbed me, and I thought, this is it. This is how I die." Her voice caught. "Then you showed up. This skinny kid with nothing, putting himself between me and a gun. You gave me my life back that night, Marcus. Not just physically, but you reminded me that there's still good in the world. Still, people who care about strangers. Still heroes." Marcus hugged her. "You gave me my life back, too. All of you did." They stood there for a moment, understanding flowing between them without words. Sometimes you save someone's life. Sometimes they save yours. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, it's both. Marcus left the clubhouse that night feeling fuller than he could ever remember. Not just his stomach, but his heart, his soul, his sense of self. He'd gone from having nothing, no home, no family, no future, to having everything that mattered. And he'd done it not by being perfect, but by being brave one time when it counted. Back in his apartment, Marcus looked at the photos on his wall. One of them was with Victor and Sarah at graduation. The plaque from tonight's celebration. The vest is hanging on a hook by the door. All evidence of a life rebuilt from rubble. He thought about the kid he'd been 2 years ago, terrified, starving, convinced he was worthless. If he could go back and tell that kid what was coming, would he believe it? Probably not. It would seem too good to be true, too much like a fairy tale. But it had happened. All of it. Because Marcus had made one choice, one terrifying choice, to step into an alley and help a stranger in need. One choice had changed everything. And maybe that was the lesson in all of this. You didn't need to be special. You didn't need resources or power or status. You just needed to be willing to do the right thing, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Because you never knew which choice would be the one that changed your life. Which moment of courage would ripple outward, affecting not just you, but everyone around you. Creating waves of change that spread farther than you could imagine. Marcus had learned that lesson the hard way. And now, he was dedicated to teaching it to others, showing kids that they mattered, that their choices had power, that one act of courage could change everything. He lay down in his own bed in his own apartment, safe and warm and loved, and thought about tomorrow. He had class in the morning, work in the afternoon, and a mentoring session at the community center in the evening. A full life. A purposeful life. A life that mattered. Not bad for a homeless kid who used to think nobody cared. Not bad at all. So what did you think of Marcus's complete journey? From homeless teenager to advocate and community leader, it's proof that our circumstances don't define us, our choices do. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another one. And in the comments, tell me, what would you do if you witnessed someone in danger? Would you step in like Marcus or call for help? There's no wrong answer. I'm genuinely curious about your perspectives. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Stories like these remind us of the power of compassion, courage, and community. Remember, you never know when one choice, one moment of bravery, might change not just your life, but countless others. Until next time, stay kind, stay brave, and keep making a difference wherever you are. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. See you in the next story.